The town of Hollow Pines was a forgotten corner of the world. It sat at the edge of an ancient forest, shrouded in perpetual mist. The air always carried a damp chill, and the silence of the woods was oppressive. Hollow Pines' history was steeped in darkness, from witch trials to mysterious disappearances. The townsfolk lived in a quiet, uneasy truce with their surroundings. But one entity loomed larger than all the whispered legends: the Grinning Demon. The first sighting of the Grinning Demon dated back over a century. It was said to appear as a figure cloaked in shadow, its grotesque smile illuminated by an otherworldly light. Wherever it appeared, misfortune followed. Fires, plagues, unexplained deaths. And then there were the disappearances. Children vanishing from their beds, their laughter echoing faintly in the woods long after they were gone. The story begins with Elena Harper, a young journalist returning to her hometown after a decade away. Her return was not voluntary. Her career in the city had fallen apart, and her mother, a stern and deeply superstitious woman, had begged her to come home. "Something's wrong here, Elena," her mother had said over the phone, her voice trembling. "It's the demon. People have been seeing it again." Elena dismissed her mother's words as paranoia, but she needed a place to regroup. She told herself the stories were just that, stories. Yet, as she drove into Hollow Pines, the oppressive atmosphere and the twisted shapes of the trees unsettled her more than she cared to admit. Her first night back was eerily quiet. The old house creaked and groaned like a living thing. Elena's mother had gone to bed early, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. She sat in the dimly lit living room, leafing through a box of her childhood belongings. Among the faded photographs and forgotten toys, she found a sketchbook. The pages were filled with crude drawings of a grinning figure in the woods. She felt a chill run down her spine. "Mom, what is this?" Elena asked the next morning, holding up the sketchbook. Her mother's face went pale. "You drew those when you were little. You said you saw it in the woods." Elena laughed nervously. "I must had a wild imagination." But her mother wasn't laughing. "Stay out of those woods, Elena. Promise me." Over the next few days, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She began hearing whispers at night, faint and unintelligible, but persistent. The townsfolk were no help. They avoided her questions, their eyes darting nervously whenever she mentioned the Grinning Demon. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elena's childhood friend, Nathan, showed up at her door. Nathan was one of the few people who didn't treat her like an outsider. He'd stayed in Hollow Pines, becoming the town's sheriff. "Elena, I heard you've been asking questions," Nathan said, his tone serious. "You need to stop. People around here don't like to talk about it." "Why not? If it's just a legend, what's the harm?" Elena challenged. Nathan hesitated. "Because it's not just a legend. And the more you dig, the more likely you are to draw its attention." Elena rolled her eyes. "Come on, Nate. You don't really believe that, do you?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "Just be careful, okay?" That night, Elena decided to venture into the woods. Armed with a flashlight and a notepad, she convinced herself it was for an article, an attempt to revive her career. The forest was deathly silent, the only sound her own footsteps crunching on the undergrowth. The deeper she went, the more the trees seemed to close in, their twisted branches like skeletal fingers. Then she saw it. A faint glow in the distance. Her heart pounded as she approached, the light growing brighter. And then there it was, the Grinning Demon. Its form was indistinct, a mass of shadow with a smile that seemed too wide for its face. The smile radiated a sickly yellow light, and its eyes, if they could be called that, were empty voids. Elena froze, unable to move or scream. The demon tilted its head as if studying her, and then it spoke. Its voice was a guttural whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You should not have come here, little one." She stumbled backward, her flashlight flickering. The demon's grin widened, and it began to move toward her, its steps soundless. Just as it reached out, Elena's flashlight went out completely, plunging her into darkness. When she woke, she was lying at the edge of the woods. Her flashlight and notepad were gone. Her mother found her and dragged her home, sobbing. Elena couldn't remember how she'd escaped, but the image of the demon's smile was burned into her mind. Over the following days, Elena became obsessed. She pored over old records and spoke to the few townsfolk willing to talk. She discovered a chilling connection. Every sighting of the Grinning Demon coincided with a tragedy in the Harper family. Her great-grandfather had disappeared after seeing it. Her uncle had gone mad. And now, it seemed, it was her turn. Desperate for answers, Elena confronted Nathan. "You knew, didn't you, about my family?" Nathan sighed, guilt etched on his face. "I tried to protect you. Your family. It's connected to this thing. No one knows why, but it's always been the Harpers." "Then how do I stop it?" Elena demanded. "You don't," Nathan said grimly. "No one ever has." The climax came on a stormy night. The whispers in the house grew louder, coalescing into a voice. "Come to me, Elena," it beckoned. Against her mother's pleas, Elena returned to the woods. She found the demon waiting, its grin impossibly wide. "Why me?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The demon's laughter was a low, malevolent rumble. "You are the key, child. Your bloodline binds me to this place, but you can free me. What happens if I do?" The demon's grin faltered for the first time. "Freedom for me means annihilation for you." Elena hesitated, the weight of generations on her shoulders. With a cry of defiance, she raised a jagged piece of iron she'd found in the woods and plunged it into the demon's form. It let out an unearthly scream, its body dissolving into shadows. But as it vanished, its laughter echoed through the forest. When Elena emerged from the woods, she was forever changed. The Grinning Demon was gone, but so was part of her soul. The town of Hollow Pines was free, but Elena knew the cost. She would never be the same.